Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about turning chains. Now, depending on what kind of stitches you're making, you can have different heights of turning chains, and it will affect whether or not you work into the turning chain or even count it as a stitch. Here I've got a simple row of chains to get us started. If I'm going to start with single crochets, I will skip the first chain and make my first single crochet right in the second chain. When I do this, that very last chain, the one closest to the hook, becomes the turning chain for this row. Let me work a couple more stitches here so we can get our first row established. I'm just working simple single crochets here to get a base for our work. Okay, let's say it's time to start our second row. Now for the second row, I want to make double crochets. So there are two ways I can do this, both of which I see about equally often. Sometimes people will have you chain 3 times, turn your work, and then for your first true double crochet, rather than working into that first stitch of the row, you'll work into the second stitch, just like so. And then continue to work your double crochets, or whatever your pattern calls for, on across the row. Now, as I come to the end of the row, I'm going to work into the top of each single crochet we made. However, I'm not going to work into right down here, this little V at the bottom. That was our turning chain, the chain that we didn't work into. So I'm going to work into the top of that single crochet, just like so, and be done with that row. Now, when I count my stitches for this row, I can count the tops of the V's, or I can count the actual posts. However, because we didn't work right into that first one again, and we chained 3, I'm going to count this row of 3 chains as one of the stitches. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches for this row. Now for the next row, the third row, I'm going to show you a slightly different way to do double crochets. I'm going to chain 2 instead of 3, and then turn, and then I'll work my first double crochet right into that first stitch where we're chaining from, like so. Then I will continue on down the row of double crochets. All the way to the end. Now, because on the previous row that chain 3 counted as a stitch, here I've got the last of the double crochets worked into the double crochets, I'm going to, for this row, since this chain 3 counted as a double crochet, I'm going to work my next stitch right into the top of that chain. Kind of have to push your hook through there, pick up those top 2 V's from that last chain, and I'm going to treat that chain 3, as you can see, as another double crochet. Now when I'm counting stitches from this row, since I did this row a little differently, that chain 2 at the front, I'm not going to count that as a stitch. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches, but that chain 2 does not count. So when I work back in this row, let's work a row of single crochets. So I'll chain 1 to start my row of single crochets, turn, skip that chain, and work into the top of the double crochets on down to the end. I will work 7, of course. 1, 2 are done, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we're still working 7 stitches in each row. As you can see, I did not work into that top of that chain 2. There's different reasons for making your stitches like this. When you make them with the chain 3, it can be great. Just keep your number of stitches real even to get your height right away. The chain 2 can create a little extra width here. That can be a problem depending on the pattern, or it can actually be quite handy if you are working a border so that you don't get this big gap when you work the border into the side of your pattern. Either way, you should certainly follow the directions of the pattern you're using, but if you're making one up, you've got lots of options. And that's all about turning chains. Thanks for watching.